It was almost midnight when the phone lit up on my nightstand, buzzing against a half-empty glass of water. 11:47 p.m. My boss's name flashed on the screen. The same boss who just days earlier had handed his golden favorite a $50,000 bonus and handed me a $300 gift card. That's it. A plastic card tucked inside a cheap company envelope with a stock "We appreciate your dedication" printed on it. I should have thrown it away, but I didn't. Because even trash tells a story. You know what burns? Not even the number itself. It's the fact that the favorite had barely shown up to half the project meetings, while I was the one grinding through 12-hour days, handling vendor crises, cleaning up code, drafting presentations. The client, the one whose account basically saved our quarter, knew my name, not his. Yet in the conference room on the projector screen, I watched the slide roll past. Strategic Initiative Award, $50,000. Favorite's name. And right after that, the applause. I swear I felt my ears ringing, not from clapping, but from blood rushing in humiliation. After the meeting, they wheeled in a sheet cake. "To the team," the boss said, knife already in his hand like some magnanimous king dividing spoils. My piece tasted like cardboard, and maybe it was just me, but the frosting left a bitter film in my mouth. I pretended to laugh at some joke. The favorite slapped me on the back, whispered, "Don't spend your bonus all in one place," and then he laughed at his own joke. The next morning, I checked the gift card balance online. Error message. I called customer service. Turns out the card hadn't even been activated properly. $0. The woman on the phone apologized, reissued it, and by noon, it was finally loaded with $300. I stared at that number on the screen. $300. Not enough to cover even half my rent, but enough to remind me exactly where I stood in the food chain. You'd think I would have raged, maybe slammed my laptop shut, or stormed into HR. I didn't. Instead, I went quiet. Because humiliation is a strange fuel. It doesn't always explode. Sometimes it condenses into something sharper, slower, like ice forming. I started keeping a folder, copies of slides with my name stripped off, email threads where I'd been accidentally excluded, expense approvals routed under cost centers that didn't match. Nothing dramatic, just receipts, a trail. Still, life doesn't pause for dignity. I went home that week like anyone else, heated up leftovers, called my mom to check on her health, made sure my student loan auto-pay cleared. I told myself, it's just a job. But at night, lying awake, I couldn't shake the image of my boss's smirk, his hand on the favorite's shoulder, the way he said, "Well deserved," into the microphone. So when my phone buzzed at 11:47 that night, I almost didn't pick up. Almost. But curiosity is its own trap. I swiped. "Hey!" My boss's voice came through, smooth but tight, like someone rehearsing calm. I know it's late. I need a favor, a quick one." I didn't answer right away. The clock on the wall ticked louder than his breathing. "What kind of favor?" I finally asked. "Nothing big," he said too quickly. "Just something I need you to clean up before morning. You're my closer, right? Always reliable." His words hung there, sticky with the kind of flattery that usually precedes something rotten. My chest tightened, but my voice stayed even. "Send me the details," I said. Silence. Then, "Yeah, okay. Check your inbox in 5. I hung up, the phone screen dimming to black. I stared at the ceiling, the shadows pooling in the corners of my apartment. $300 sitting in a plastic card on my desk. $50,000 wired into someone else's account. And now, a call at midnight, asking me to clean up whatever mess he'd made. I opened my laptop. The email notification was already waiting. And that was the moment I knew. This wasn't about a bonus anymore. This was about leverage. I didn't sleep that night. The email he sent landed like a stone in my inbox at 11:52 p.m. Subject line, "Urgent variance report. 4 attached spreadsheets, a 2-line note. Need you to reframe Q4 bonus allocation as retention initiative. Finance is nitpicking. Just phrase it clean and send back first thing. Thanks, champ." Retention initiative. My stomach turned. That was code for expenses that were client approved. The kind where you could dip into certain funds to keep staff engaged on that client's work. But the $50,000 wasn't retention. It wasn't anything but favoritism laundered through accounting. And now finance had noticed. I closed the email without replying. Instead, I opened the folder I'd started keeping since the gift card day. Copies of decks, emails, expense sheets, a single note in bold font on the top of the folder, when they ask. The week before. Looking back, every day after that insult had left crumbs, leading to this midnight favor. Monday, I got a calendar invite for the Innovation Review meeting, the one I had prepared 2/3 of the material for. Except the invite showed me as optional. The favorite was listed as presenter. I clicked into the deck later, and sure enough, the properties said, author, favorite's name. My own draft notes were still embedded in the margins, stripped of my name but intact like fingerprints. Tuesday, procurement flagged a vendor invoice for a design sprint we had run. It had been recoded under the favorite's cost center, even though my budget had covered the whole sprint. I asked about it in Slack. My boss replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Nothing else. Wednesday, a client sent a thank you email. They wrote, "Appreciate my name for catching the scope issue before launch." By the time that email got forwarded to the leadership team, my name had disappeared. Just, "Appreciate the team." The favorite replied, all with, "Glad we pulled through," as if he'd been the one on the 3 a.m. Call fix in code. Thursday, the all hands, the slide, the $50,000, the cake, and my $300 card that wasn't even activated. Friday, I stayed late, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to. I pulled logs from our repository, copied commit histories, downloaded timestamped decks from the archive. Every artifact I could think of that proved authorship. I even screenshot metadata, in case someone tried to rewrite history later. By midnight, I had a folder that told the story better than I ever could, out loud. Quiet prep. I didn't rage. I didn't vent to coworkers or make snide jokes. I just nodded when people congratulated the favorite, smiled at the cake, said thanks for the card. But every night I added to the folder. By Sunday, it had structure. 801 projects, decks, drafts, repo logs, the O2 expenses, invoices, approvals, cost center screenshots, 803 emails, threads stripped of my name, optional invites, client thank yous, EOR policy, PDF copies of the official finance guidelines. At the very top, one document titled Summary PDF, just bullet points, no commentary, facts, dates, attachments referenced, neutral tone, because I knew sooner or later someone would ask. Midnight forward. So when his urgent email landed, I didn't panic. I didn't scream into the pillow. I did what I'd trained myself to do all week. I saved it, dropped it into O3 emails, updated summaried up dekeef with a new line. 11:52 p.m. Boss instructs me to reframe 50K bonus as retention initiative, despite policy prohibition. Then I drafted a reply, not to him directly, at least not yet. I opened a new email addressed to myself, with his email attached, subject line. Policy clarification, Q4 bonuses. Inside I wrote, need to confirm whether discretionary bonuses can be coded as client retention initiatives. Received conflicting guidance. Attaching recent instruction from boss for reference. And I scheduled it. 7:59 a.m. Monday. Sent not just to me, but to the compliance queue alias. It was a small move, but it meant when the clock ticked Monday morning, I wouldn't have to decide whether to stay silent or speak up. The email would already be in the system, time-stamped, undeniable. Lying there in the dark, my phone face down, I realized something. This wasn't a story about $300 anymore. This was a story about patience, about humiliation calcified into evidence. My boss thought I was his closer. What he didn't know was that I had already begun writing the closing chapter, one line at a time, and come Monday morning, someone else was going to start reading it. The phone call was short, but the ripples carried through the entire next day. Monday morning, 8:03 a.m., my scheduled email fired off to compliance. By 8:07, I saw the first read receipt. By 8:15, my boss was calling. I let it ring. Then another call, then a text. Don't overthink this. Just send them a summary. It's nothing. That word again, nothing. As if rewriting $50,000 of favoritism into a retention initiative was a clerical slip, not fraud. The conversation. At 8:26, I answered, my voice calm, his voice strained. Why'd you loop compliance? He demanded, no greeting. I didn't, I said. I just asked for a policy clarification. You attached my email. I wanted to be accurate. You asked me to frame it as retention. I wasn't sure if that was compliant, so I asked. Silence, thick enough I could hear his breath catch. Then he tried softening. Look, you're my guy. You've always been my guy. Don't make this bigger than it is. Then put your request in writing, I said, so I can be precise. He'd already done that. He knew it, and now he was cornered by his own words. The real problem. By noon, compliance replied. Their message was as sterile as a lab report. Per policy section 4.3.1, discretionary bonuses may not be coded as client retention expenses. Please provide documentation if this was done in error. In other words, prove it wasn't fraud. My boss's response came 30 seconds later. Another text. Delete that email chain now. I'll handle finance myself. I didn't reply. I didn't delete. I dragged it onto 03 emails. Updated summary. PDTF. 12:04 p.m. Boss instructs me via text to delete compliance correspondence. The folder was becoming a ledger, each line another nail. The favorite joins in. At 2:17 p.m., a message popped up in Teams. The favorite. Hey man, I heard finance is being nosy. Don't sweat it. Just say the bonus was for morale. That's retention. Everyone wins. The casual arrogance of someone who's never cleaned up a mess in his life. I didn't reply. 2 minutes later, another ping. Seriously, though, don't mess this up for me. For us, you don't want to look like you're not a team player. And then, as if realizing he'd said too much, LOL JK. But yeah, you got this. Screenshotted, saved, added to the ledger. My move. At 3:45 p.m., I drafted a reply. Not to them, but to compliance. Following up on your request, attaching supporting materials for Q4 deliverables credited as Strategic Initiative. Please note, author and owner metadata indicate different contributors than listed on award documents. Expense coding routed under non-author cost center. See attachments. I attach the decks, the logs, the invoices, neutral, factual, no adjectives, the kind of packet that doesn't shout, just weighs. Then I CC'd my boss and the favorite. The moment. When I hit send, my pulse barely moved. No triumph, no panic. Just the click of a key, the cursor blinking back at me. Within minutes, Teams lit up, my boss calling, the favorite messaging. A new meeting invite popped onto my screen. Urgent sync, 4:15. Attendees, boss, favorite, compliance, legal, me. I stared at it, accepted, and as the clock crept toward 4:15, I realized this wasn't their meeting anymore. It was mine. Because when you walk in with the receipts, you don't need volume. You just need silence and the weight of proof. The urgent sync started exactly at 4:15. 4 rectangles lit up on my screen. My boss looked flushed, tie loosened like he'd just sprinted down a hallway. The favorite sat in his expensive gaming chair, trying to look relaxed, though his knee was bouncing out of frame. Compliance wore their usual mask, neutral, polite. Legal joined a second later, camera off, voice sharp and efficient. All right, my boss said, clapping his hands once as if to inject energy. We're here to align. Just a misunderstanding. No one answered. The evidence. Let's keep this simple, the compliance manager said. We received documentation this morning suggesting discretionary bonuses were misclassified as retention expenses. Can you walk us through that? My boss leaned forward, palms out. It was an oversight, purely clerical. The funds were allocated correctly, just mislabeled. Legal's voice cut in. Then why did the documents indicate our favorite as the sole contributor to deliverables authored by my name? The favorite laughed, too loud. Look, we all collaborate. Sometimes the metadata doesn't tell the full story. You know how it is with version control. Actually, I said, calm and measured, the version history shows otherwise. Each deck, each repo log has timestamps with my credentials. The award slide listed favorite exclusively. I've attached both sets of files for comparison. I shared my screen. Slide 1, the award announcement. Slide 2, properties panel with my name as author. Slide 3, git log, commit messages, date, time, username. The cursor blinked in silence. The cracks show. Okay, my boss said quickly, but bonuses are discretionary. The point is overall morale, not one person's contribution. Compliance tilted their head. But the expense was coded as client retention, not discretionary. Section 4.3.1 prohibits that. Did you approve this coding? My boss's jaw tightened. I delegated. To whom? Legal asked. A pause. Then, to favorite. The favorite's head snapped up. Wait, what? You told me it was fine. You said... Enough, Legal interrupted. We'll need a written statement from both of you by end of day. The trap springs. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I want to clarify one point, I said, scrolling to a screenshot of my midnight email. When I asked if this classification was compliant, I was instructed to delete the correspondence. I did not. Here's the timestamp. Legal's silence carried more weight than words. Then, understood. Please forward that directly to me. My boss looked like he'd swallowed glass. The favorite rubbed his face, muttering something inaudible. Meeting adjourned, Compliance said, already closing their window. Aftermath, day 1. The calls started within minutes. My boss first, then the favorite, then both together. I didn't answer. Instead, I updated summary.pdf, 4:15 p.m. Compliance. Plus, legal meeting. Boss shifts blame. Favorite contradicts. Legal requests written statements. 4:23 p.m. Boss attempts further calls. Ignored. I closed the folder. Backed it up twice. External drive. Encrypted cloud. Then I opened a different folder. Offer letter. Signed last week. Start date. Next Monday. Parallel lines. At 6:07 p.m., a client emailed me directly. Heard some confusion internally. Just confirming you're still point of contact? Appreciate the transparency you've always shown. I read it twice. Drafted a polite reply. Kept it simple. Yes, still point of contact. Always happy to clarify deliverables. Because the truth was, by next week, I wouldn't be here. But I needed the handoff clean, documented, professional, so that when the floor collapsed under them, no one could say I had pulled the trigger out of spite. I had just written down what happened and let gravity do the rest. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the $300 card still untouched beside my laptop. I thought about buying groceries with it, maybe gas. Instead, I left it there, plastic shining under the desk lamp like a trophy of misplaced arrogance. The $50,000 was already burning a hole in someone else's pocket, but now the fire had spread, and tomorrow the alarms would start ringing. By Tuesday morning, the fallout had already begun. The freeze. An email went out from HR at 9:12 a.m. All discretionary bonuses are on temporary hold pending review. No names mentioned, but everyone knew. Slack lit up in whispers. People pinged me privately, half congratulations, half fear. By lunch, the favorite's calendar was blocked with admin leave. He didn't post a single meme in the team chat that day, which told me everything. My boss? He looked like a ghost. His approval privileges were revoked in the finance system. Someone leaked a screenshot of the red banner. Access restricted. Pending compliance review. The counteroffer At 3 p.m., HR called me in, their smiles strained, their words careful. "We want you to know how much we value your contributions," the director said. "This was a misunderstanding. If you'd like, we can revisit your bonus. Something more substantial." She slid a piece of paper across the table. A counteroffer. A number much bigger than $300, though still a fraction of what had been siphoned to the favorite. I folded the paper without looking at it. "I already signed elsewhere," I said quietly. "My start date is next week." Her face didn't change, but the silence in the room did. The clawback. By Thursday, the rumor was official. The $50,000 had been clawed back. Finance demanded repayment. The favorite had already spent some of it, a car lease, a vacation deposit. But that wasn't finance's problem. He owed the company money. My boss? His emails grew shorter, more desperate. "We can fix this. We're a team." "Don't burn bridges," I didn't reply. Each one went in the folder. Summary PDF grew into a book. The goodbye Friday afternoon, I packed my desk into a cardboard box. The same office where a week ago they'd clapped for someone else with my work on the screen. The same break room where the sheet cake still sat, stale and crusted at the edges. Colleagues stopped by, some awkward, some grateful. One whispered, "Thank you." Nobody else could have stood up to him. I just nodded. I wasn't here to be a hero. I was here to leave clean. The final note. Before I walked out, I sent one last email. Subject line: transition plan. Inside, links to documentation, client notes, everything tidy. No bitterness, no gloating, just professionalism. Because revenge isn't about fire, it's about weight. And by then, the weight had already shifted. When I dropped my key card at reception, I didn't look back. The call from HR came exactly 1 week after the bonus fiasco. My boss's voice was unusually calm, almost rehearsed. He wanted me in the conference room at 10 a.m. sharp. When I walked in, he was already there, along with the company's lawyer and the head of compliance. For a moment, he still tried to play the confident leader, but his hands were restless on the table. They had discovered what I had quietly been preparing: the emails, the spreadsheets, the expense reports. Everything was linked, every favor to his favorite paid for with company funds, every bonus disguised as a legitimate expense. The head of compliance slid a folder toward me and asked if I was willing to provide a formal statement. I didn't even hesitate. My boss tried to laugh it off, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, but the lawyer's face never changed. They already knew the truth. My statement would just make it official. When it was over, they escorted him out of the building. For years, he had strutted around like he was untouchable. Now he couldn't even meet my eyes. 2 days later, the company announced his termination for cause. The $50,000 bonus that had started this entire mess was revoked, his accounts frozen, and his reputation shredded overnight. Colleagues who once laughed at his jokes now avoided his name altogether. And me? I received a quiet promotion, not flashy, not headline-worthy, but solid, the kind that comes with respect, and the kind of salary that can't be mistaken for a Christmas gift. As I left the office that night, I thought back to that moment when he handed me the $300. He had wanted to remind me of my place. Instead, he reminded me to find my voice. And once I used it, the silence that followed was his undoing.